Hi guys, today we're going to be looking at perspectives, and this is for the OCR A2 Psychology spec. There are many types of perspectives, and these are the psychodynamic perspective, the behaviorist perspective, the humanist perspective, and the evolutionary perspective. Note that for this specification you just need to know about the psychodynamic perspective and the behaviorist perspective. The behaviorist perspective. John Watson, who was also known for the famous study on Little Albert, pioneered this perspective in 1913 when he published the article Psychology as a Behaviorist Views It. At this time, psychology was a young academic discipline, and the way in which psychology was done was through introspection, and this is the examination of one's own mental state. Watson deemed this to be insufficiently rigorous, and argued that introspection should be rejected and terms like mental state, mind, and emotion should be abandoned as they have no explanatory value. The defining features of behaviorism are as follows. 1. Psychology should be seen as a science and should be thus studied in a scientific manner. 2. The only subject matter for psychology should be behaviours which can be observed and measured, rather than internal events like thinking and emotion. 3. The major influence of behaviour is learning from the environment. 4. There is little difference between the learning that takes place in humans and that in other animals. Consequently, research can be carried out on animals and humans. The focus of behaviorism is to attempt to understand the processes by which learning takes place, and behaviorist believes that humans are born as blank slates, which is known as tabula rasa, and that everything is learned after birth. Behaviorists have suggested 3 ways in which learning occurs. 1. Classical conditioning. 2. Operant conditioning, and 3. Social learning theory, and you really need to be familiar with these different types of learning processes. And there's a little joke for you if you want to read that. So the strengths of the behaviorist perspective are that it highlights the role of nurture in learning, conveying the important influence that it has on our behaviour. This perspective can be deemed to be useful, having practical applications in a range of different settings, including clinical ones, such as the treatment of phobias, which you may have learned about in A2 psychology, as like systematic desensitization and flooding, for example. The focus of studying observable behaviour in controlled laboratory experiments helps to give psychology scientific credibility. The weaknesses of the behaviorist perspective are that it ignores the influence of nature on behaviour, failing to take into account the way in which genetics and biology can place limitations on what individuals can learn. The lessons that behaviorism teach us can be difficult to apply and may be open to inappropriate use. For example, how are we meant to control what children are exposed to? As this perspective favours the laboratory experiment, much of the research into this perspective lacks ecological validity. Now we're going to have a quick look at the psychodynamic perspective, and this was pioneered by Sigmund Freud, who you should be familiar with. This perspective focuses on the role of the unconscious mind and our past experience as the cause of current behaviours. Freud believed that the mind operates on 3 levels: the conscious, the preconscious, and the unconscious. Our unconscious mind is what we are currently thinking about. Our preconscious mind can be accessed with relative ease by retrieving stored memories, and our unconscious mind is hidden from our awareness, and Freud suggests that it is very hard, if not impossible, to access it directly. And here's a little visual representation of the id, the ego, and the superego, which I'll talk about in a second, and the conscious, the preconscious, and the unconscious, which I just talked about. So Freud claimed that the content of our unconscious mind is revealed in our dreams and through Freudian slips, which are slips of the tongue. 2 techniques that analyse the unconscious mind are dream analysis and free association, which you may be familiar with from A2 psychology in the mental health bit, I believe. Free association involves patients laying down on a couch and speaking whatever comes into their head. Projective tests can also be used, which is where patients are presented with ambiguous stimuli and are asked to say what they see in them. Their comments are seen as a projection of their unconscious conflicts. Freud claims that we have no control over our unconscious and therefore have no free will. Freud suggests that behaviour is motivated from the unconscious by 2 distinct drives, which are known as eros, the life instinct, and thanatos, the death instinct. He also believed that the personality has 3 components which reside in the unconscious and are known as the id, the ego, and the superego. The id and the superego can create conflict for the ego if the desires of the id to spend unconscious energy are disapproved of by the moral conscience, the superego. Failure of the ego to resolve this conflict can lead to ego anxiety, which is, according to the psychodynamic perspective, the cause of all mental health problems. Strengths of the psychodynamic perspective are: this perspective offers an explanation for why people develop mental disorders, and by highlighting the importance of the unconscious mind as the influence on our feelings and behaviour, Freud was the first to stress how abnormal behaviour could be caused by psychological factors. This perspective conveys ways in which people with mental disorders can be treated, for example, Freud's talking cure. Freud's legacy is apparent in modern forms of counselling. Freud's work made the case study method popular in psychology. Case studies provide in-depth detail about a person's experiences. The case study method remains popular in the area of abnormal psychology. The weaknesses of the psychodynamic perspective are that it is unscientific in terms of its analysis of human behaviour. In particular, many of the concepts central to Freud's theories can neither be verified nor falsified, and so they are not open to the process of scientific testing. The evidence of the psychodynamic theory is from Freud's case studies, and the issue here is that these are based on studying one person, for example Little Hands, that you should know about in detail, and the evidence from this is highly subjective and probably has been affected by researcher bias. This puts the validity of such findings into question and makes generalizations tricky. Thank you for watching that short presentation. I hope you made some notes as you went along, but I will be making some more videos, so make sure you check those out. Thank you for watching, and see you later.